Good morning, everybody. So we started talking about Sir Henry Moore and asked you guys to kind of look out some information about him and find out some facts and take a little quiz and do some sketches. Before we get too far today, I will be going into school Friday in the morning, and I'll try to gather up everything and then I'll get it into the lobby so that you guys can stop by or have someone stop by. Some things. Take one foam block per person. I will put out enough for everyone to have one foam block. I will also put out enough for everyone to have one box of paste. It's a powder that you just sort of mix with lukewarm water, and you're going to be able to make the paper mache mix for it. You don't have to make it right away until we start the project and we need paper mache. If there's any, you don't make the whole bag, make little bits at once because the whole bag makes a giant bowl. If you have leftovers and stuff, when we turn stuff back in or when we get back to school, you'll be able to hand that stuff back to me. So we want to start making sure that we are, oops, wrong button. We are working on and doing, we're starting to plan for things. We're going to start to need to collect newspapers because we're going to need a bunch of those. So we're going to start off with looking at some of Moore's work. I'll hook up a Prezi for you guys, so I'm not going to keep the full class today because I'll hook you up with a Prezi to watch. It's not super long. You can click through it, but it goes over a little bit more detail about Henry. And these are some of his figures. So these are pieces of his, some of his sculptures. Before we start to scroll through and look at some of them, we are going to definitely look at some of Henry's sketches. So some of these, especially when you're looking at like these in here, these are from the London Blitz, where the German Luftwaffe is bombing Berlin and the Londoners have to find shelter. And part of Henry, he was part of the movement that actually got them access into the tube, the tunnels that run under London for the people to stay in. And these are drawings he did from those places. So it was, you know, cramped, hostile conditions, and you can see that reflected in some of these drawings. Just the look of the people. These people will later become some of his abstract sculptures through shape and form. So here we see some of his sketches of an abstract sculpture. This is a reclining figure. And this is shoulders, neck, torso, hips, and into legs. Again, reclining figure, a more refined sketch from before. And as you look at these, you can start to see the people, head, arms and shoulders going down into body, definitely arms leading into body. This will become one of his, this is an early idea of some of his most famous sculptures. But he is a proficient drawer on top of being a sculptor. So he was no kind of slouch there when he was working with his figures. So when we look at his sculpture pieces, here you can see reclining figures. Now he does abstraction, so he's taking and simplifying forms and laying them out in the most simple idea of what he's trying to convey. This one here, I believe an average person at 6 foot tall is about in this spot on this nice sculpture. He doesn't use always full bodies. These pieces here are from pieces of spine, so your spinal column, and then he stacks them out. He plays a lot with how light affects his statues. So where the light source come from, how negative space interacts with the whole sculpture. His sculptures are very flowing and moving. So this is earlier work of his where you can see the chunky nature of it. And then he becomes more and more lighter in his approach. He's influenced by Mexican ancient sculptures. So things of Incans, Mayans, Central American, and how they kind of portray their figures. And you can see in this reclining figure, it's a direct relation to a lot of his other work and how he makes his forms. So his base idea and what we're going to embrace is abstract. He deals with the human figure. You don't have to. Not everything about his is the human figure. He uses a lot of plaster as small models. And then when someone purchased or commissioned his work, he would take the small model and he would then enlarge it and usually have it cast in like a bronze or a brass, or he would have it plated so that it could pick up these wonderful patinas that you see in his work. Some of his things are very abstract. So this is, again, how does light play with the sculpture? How does the light reflect off of the surface? The negative space flowing through and in between. His sculptures aren't meant to just be looked at. He wants people to interact with them and look at them. In museums, they don't like you to touch them. But a lot of his open air sculptures, you can see where people touch up against it and there'll be a different polish to it, or people get inside of them and there'll be different looks to these sculptures than the ones sitting inside of a gallery. One of the things to think about is he has very large scale. So he works rather small. And when you see the video, or if you watch the first video from me, you could see him in his workshop and he has a whole bunch of little plaster sculptures. And then those transform into these monumental, large scale works. He designs not just the sculpture, he also looks at where the sculpture is going to go. Where's it sitting in the environment? What's around it? How will the environment affect what he is creating? Later on, he started to do these cocoon style sculptures, sculpture with another one wrapped around it. So you have a central sculpture piece, and then you have an outside shell that's wrapped around it. And then we see some sheep grazing in the background. So we are going to take a standard block. So I'm going to stop off of that, and I'm going to switch to Shaboop, Shaboop. So I'm on my sketchbook. We are going to have a rectangular block. It's almost, I think it's 3.5 inches by 2 3/4 inches by 6. So you're going to have a square top. And this is my environment that I'm going to live in and work with. I would start, before I get into the full dimensions, it depends on how you want to think about it. I'm looking at some of the comments that happened while I was away. To me, knowing where everything lives in space is important, but it's not the only thing. I might draw my top view, a side view, and then a second view of the side, so that I know where my pieces are, and I might make my form in these and then transfer it into the cube. The idea is we want to start to do sketches, and I've asked you to do sketches this week based on some of his ideas, and then we want to translate that into how is it going to look dimensionally. Will you use your block vertically, or will you use your block horizontally when you're doing your work? It doesn't have to look like one of Moore's pieces. I want it to be your piece, but you can use him as an influence. I would definitely keep myself a base, and it doesn't have to be really tall, but you want to have an idea of where the bottom of it is. You could make it freestanding where you have posts come up and legs to hold it, but having a base underneath is going to help you with your whole design. It's going to give it stability, and you're not going to have to worry about it wobbling or tilting. Depending on what you want to do, how you want your piece to go, and that's why I would say look at your sketches, pick your sketch out of it, and then start to apply it into this cubic nature. If your sketches, if you've done your 3 sketches and you really don't like them yet, then play with a few more sketches. Let's build those up until we know what we're going to make. And then how is what we're going to make interact with its own environment? Does it proceed across my piece? Is it going to hold space? How's it going to handle positive and negative value? Where is it going to get its stability from? How does it use all of the cubic area? That we have built into it. When I'm drawing like this, I would probably give myself little ideas of what's going to be negative space so that I know when I'm working. And then like, I see I have a lot of outside space here. I think I might build that up. So then I don't have as much openings. The styrofoam is going to be slightly messy. So to compensate for that, what I would do is I would make sure to have a damp cloth. Let me switch over. I'd make sure to have a damp cloth next to you, and that could be like a paper towel that has a little bit of water to it. It could be like a kitchen towel that you have a little bit of water, because as you're working, the styrofoam is going to pick up a static charge, and it's going to want to stick and cling to things. With the moisture there, it helps cut down that static charge, and it also makes cleaning up easier. Want to try to contain this. I would probably put down either a towel, a big towel, or something that I can work on top of that I can then take outside and I can shake a little bit. That way I can not have all the styrofoam inside the house. We are going to start, so Friday I'll have the blocks in the lobby. I figure you guys will pick them up between Friday and Monday. So we're really not going to start this until Tuesday. Monday, I'll have a block here, and I'll start to do some demonstrations with it for you guys. So a question is, does it have to be human, or can it be a dog maybe, like the head? It's abstract. It doesn't have to be anything real. You could use a dog as your inspiration. You could use a bowl of fruit as your inspiration, or you could be very geometric in your planning of it. Any of those are going to work out for you. It's going to be long in one direction. If you want to. So the nice thing about the styrofoam is it's really easy to carve. I've had students who have just like worked it with their thumb and their fingers to kind of smooth and make kind of cool bevels and edges to it. Just because it's a vertical or horizontal, it doesn't have to stay that way. You can cut this, and we can use just straight white glue, and you can put a little glue on, press the parts together. If it's something that you really need an extra support into, you can use a toothpick or a piece of a paper clip that you put inside to make a pin when you're joining two pieces of foam together. But you could cut it at angles, and then you could join those angles together if you wanted to. To hide the seam where my two parts come together, I can take some of that foam dust that's going to be left, and when the glue oozes out, I sprinkle some of the foam dust into it, and then I use my finger to kind of smooth that in, and it makes like a little paste, and that will seal it up. White glue takes a day to dry. So whenever I'm going to glue parts together, I first make sure I'm done sculpting them, because it'll be weak around that spot. And then will it just be plain white? The foam itself is going to be green, and unless we somehow get back into school, it's probably going to stay green with it. That's why we're going to hide our seams. If we can, usually what we do is we make the foam, and then we put gesso over it to seal it, and it tightens down the foam. The gesso shrinks onto the foam itself. It makes a very tight seal, and then you can paint them, and we use acrylic paint. It's just, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. If we get back to school, we will. What tools should we use? Use the same tools from soap, exact same tools. You don't need anything super heavy, super duty. I mean, if you had the riffle files, it rips through it pretty quick, but you don't need them. So we'll just keep at basic stuff for that. And let me see if I've got that tab open. I don't. Must have got rid of it. So I'm going to show you my next share. Oh, silly sketchbook. So I'm going to pop here. So we truly are looking at abstract. Your block is going to be something similar to this. It won't be, our length and width are closer in size, but when you're done, you might have something like that. Very nice, flowy, abstract shape. This person here removed a base and just left it freestanding. Kind of looks like coral. And then just kind of some abstract pieces in there. We are going to look for creation of motion in your work so that it looks like it's moving somehow. The use of negative space and positive space to affect light. We are going to look at, again, we might use some undercuts to increase those shadow zones. We might have some holes that pierce through to make light pop up in different ways. Little things like this are not hard at all to do, and you could even add another dimension. So these are kind of flat planed. If you go in there with a finger and you groove down the middle, slowly rubbing your finger across the surface of these pieces, you can make an indent to them, or you can rub the outside edges and make a bump to them. We are going to make sure that we have a really nice finished piece. This one used up most of the block. This one removes most of the block. All of them are going to be freestanding, and it's up to you to figure out how the stand is going to go. Overall, I figure it'll probably take us a good week to get the shape that you want. Having a strong sketch to start off with, knowing where things are going to go, is going to make the sculpture easier to do, easier to lay out, easier to find where you want things to be. If you're drawing little tight details, you're going to have to use small little tight tools, something like taking the end of a pencil, and you can push in the graphite and just use this tip, and this can become your fine tool to work with. And then when you're done, you just pick up your damp paper towel and you just wipe it a little bit and get the foam off of it. You're going to be kind of creative in what you pick up and use, how you're going to manipulate and move these things. I have some examples, but I'm going to wait to show them to you because I told you guys I have a Prezi and I don't want to take up too much of your stuff today, because some of you might have English papers to do, I hear. So what we're going to do is if you have questions, stick around. Otherwise, you guys can bounce. I will get this video and I will get the Prezi link into Classroom today. And then you can watch them between now and Monday, and make sure you pick up your phone. I will go in the morning to kind of gather and get everything together. So I think the building on Monday is open, I want to say 9 to 1, I think. That's our new times. I know they cut the times back. I'm not positive. You can always check. I think it's in the district site when pickup drop off. Be careful coming around 10 or 11 because they'll have the people coming by to get food, and it'll just be busier then. So come like afternoon, like 12-ish, because by then I should have everything moved to the front, because I'm going to get stuff for you guys, stuff for drawing class to make sure they have enough supplies. A couple people have asked for independent stuff. Make sure if you need something, you email me, and then I know to grab that and put it in with where I put all this stuff. We are not the only place. All the elementaries also use the high school for drop off. So just make sure you know that when you come in, I'll try to put it on the same side as Mrs. Drinkwater's office. Cool, cool. Lydia, that looks like some good cereal. I was thinking of having Cocoa Puffs today.
So Friday or Monday?
So it will be in the lobby Friday. You can pick it up Friday or Monday, whichever works for you guys. Monday's class, when we meet, I'll have a block here Monday, and I'll start to show you some of how to cut and manipulate it.
Deal.
And I'll limit my tools to be probably what you guys are going to use too.
So I may be like behind or lost, but okay, were our soap carvings due last week?
Whenever you get it done.
Oh, okay.
No stress.
Because I have my frog. Okay, is this like question time?
Yeah, you can have question time. Here, I'll pause us.
Okay.